I spent the next 3 days living out of a budget motel down the road. But I wasn't sulking. My laptop screen was glowing with blue and white government databases, land registry files, and structural engineering permits. You see, when Evelyn forced Sarah to sign over her legal share of the property, she thought she was securing an $800,000 asset. What she didn't realize was that a house isn't just a collection of pretty walls and painted ceilings. A house is a living, legal, and structural system. And as a master structural consultant, I knew details about that property that weren't written on any standard deed. When I first bought that ruined Victorian mansion, the city had placed a conditional historic preservation lien on the title. It was a legal clause hidden deep in the municipal housing code. Any major restoration work required approved architectural permits, signed by a licensed structural engineer, or the city would declare the building unsafe for human habitation and levy massive daily fines against the deed holder. For 2 years, I had held those permits in my own personal LLC's name, personally guaranteeing the structural integrity of the home. The moment Evelyn officially took sole ownership of the deed, those permit obligations automatically transferred to her as the sole legal owner, but she had no idea they existed. She thought she just owned a gorgeous turnkey mansion. On Thursday morning, my phone rang. It was Sarah. Her voice was shaking, quiet, and filled with tears. "David, where are you?" She sobbed. "Mom changed all the locks. She's already bringing in high-end antique dealers to evaluate the house. She told me I had to pay her rent if I wanted to stay in the guest room." "David, I'm so sorry. I was so stupid. I believed her when she said you were going to ruin me." Hearing Sarah's broken voice hurt, but I kept my tone steady. "Sarah, listen to me very carefully," I said softly. "Pack your personal clothes, your passport, and your dog, and walk out of that house right now. Go stay at your friend Lisa's place. Do not argue with your mother and do not tell her where you are going. Just leave." "Why?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. "David, what are you going to do?" "I'm going to let the law handle it," I replied quietly. "Just get out of there today." After hanging up, I made my first move. I called the city building and safety department. I spoke directly with the chief inspector, a man named Marcus whom I had known professionally for 10 years. "Marcus," I said calmly, "I need to file an immediate notice of professional withdrawal for the Victorian property on Elm Street. I am revoking my engineering certification and pulling my contractor bonds off the restoration. Project effective immediately." There was a long pause on the line. "David, if you pull your engineering bond, that building loses its habitability certificate instantly. Under city code, an uncertified historic restoration of that scale is considered an active structural hazard." "I know," I said. "And the sole owner on the deed is currently occupying the residence without an active permit. We'll have to issue an immediate stop work order and an uninsurable hazard mandate," Marcus said, his voice turning strictly professional. "The owner will have 48 hours to retain a new master engineer and pay the uncertified construction penalty, or the city will lock down the premises." I smiled silently into the receiver. "Retaining an emergency structural engineer to certify a half-finished historical restoration on 48 hours notice would cost upwards of $40,000 cash. Evelyn definitely didn't have. But that was only the first layer of the trap she had walked into. Next, I logged into my business bank portal. Every single piece of high-end material I had used to restore that house, the custom imported mahogany flooring, the antique stained glass panels, the copper piping, and the high-efficiency HVAC units, had been purchased using a business credit line under my company, Vanguard Restoration LLC. I hadn't donated those materials to the house. I had legally leased them to the project under a commercial contractor material agreement. Since I was no longer the contractor on site and hadn't been paid for the materials, those items legally remained the personal property of my LLC. I called my legal counsel, a sharp real estate attorney named Arthur. Within 2 hours, Arthur drafted a formal notice of intent to repossess unpaid building materials and a pro mechanics lien against the property for $240,000 in unpaid labor and supplies. If she doesn't pay this lien within 7 days, "David," Arthur told me over the phone, "we can legally file for a judicial foreclosure on the property, regardless of whose name is on the deed." Send the notice by court courier, I told him. Make sure it's delivered directly to her hands while she's showing off the house. That evening, I drove by the property and parked down the street under the shade of an oak tree. I saw Evelyn standing on the front porch, wearing a silk dress, drinking wine, and talking animatedly. To a wealthy real estate investor she was clearly trying to sell the home to, she looked like a queen ruling over her new kingdom. Just then, a city code enforcement vehicle and a process server pulled up into the driveway. I watched from my truck as Marcus stepped out with a bright yellow, unsafe occupancy stop work order poster in his hand, while the process server marched up the steps holding my legal lien notices. Evelyn's smug smile vanished in a fraction of a second. She started screaming at Marcus, waving her hands wildly, but Marcus calmly slapped the bright yellow notice directly onto the hand-carved front door I had spent 3 weeks restoring. My phone started buzzing instantly. It was Evelyn. I let it ring. She called again, and again. Then came the text messages, escalating from furious threats to sheer panic. "Well, what did you do? Call me right now, you loser." "You can't do this. David, answer me. There are officers here threatening to fine me $5,000 a day." I sat in my truck, took a slow sip of my coffee, and typed back a simple 8-word response. "Every nail in that house is officially yours." I put my phone on silent, put the truck in drive, and pulled away into the night. But Evelyn still had no idea about the final twist I had saved for the very end.